Hello everyone. Let's spend a minute today talking about paper, a subject I don't cover much on this channel. This channel is primarily about pencils, but what good is a pencil without a sheet of paper or a pad of paper? NBC has recently announced the debut of a new sitcom, a mockumentary style sitcom in the style of The Office, and in fact is, I believe, a spin-off of The Office, that extremely popular sitcom. And this new sitcom is called The Paper and has to do with a failing Ohio newspaper in the city of Toledo. I don't know much about this sitcom other than what I've seen in the brief previews you can see on YouTube, but it intrigued me because I, at one point in my life, imagined that my future might involve writing for a newspaper, that there was some mythos or mystique about the gritty or plucky newspaper reporter. And that is a character that shows up again and again in films. I was born and raised in the aftermath of the Watergate, so you have All the President's Men was a kind of a formative film for me. But anyway, newspaper, that world, that mythos has always been intriguing to me. So the previews that I see for this sitcom are interesting to me for that reason. Well, Toledo, Ohio may be home to the fictional newspaper that is the subject of that sitcom. There's another mid-sized northern Ohio city that has real ties to the news industry, significant ties, and to the paper industry. And that city is Akron, Ohio. And that is the home of Portage Notebooks. I've shown briefly here on this channel before. Here it shows a Bedford Heights, Ohio address, Portage Notebooks. Portage here referring to that area of Ohio where the Cuyahoga River and the Tuscarawas River almost meet, and it was a place where the Native Americans of this region and later settlers would portage their canoes, their boats from one river system, the Cuyahoga, which empties north into Lake Erie, and the south-flowing Tuscarawas that ends up in the Muskingum River and eventually to the Ohio and out to the Mississippi. So it opens up the entire interior of the frontier, at that time the frontier countries of Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, all the Great Lakes areas and all the areas that are reached by the Ohio and Mississippi. Anyway, Portage. It started its life as a subsidiary of Knight Ridder, the big newspaper conglomerate that is, I believe now, defunct or owned by another larger news organization. But Knight Ridder was a big news agency in my youth. But Knight Ridder had its birth in Akron, Ohio. Well, Akron, the Akron Beacon Journal newspaper in Akron was one of two founding papers of the Knight Ridder organization, the Knight in Knight Ridder, coming from the Knight family that operated the Akron Beacon Journal. Long story short, they had a subsidiary that produced newspaper. Portage Newspaper Supply was the name of the company. Portage Newspaper Supply. Later on, after acquisitions and mergers and whatnot, changing its name to Portage Notebooks, or just the Portage Company. But still run out of Akron, although I don't believe their paper is produced in Ohio any longer. I believe most of their paper products do come from overseas Asia, according to the communications I've had with that company, brief communications. But I wanted to feature today some notebooks from the Portage Notebook Company because of their interesting ties in the history of newspaper reporting. There are testimonials on their website, and I will put a link to their website in the description of this video. There are testimonials from newspaper reporters journalists and the like that sing the praises of the notebooks produced by Portage for the news industry. Now, they don't make it just for reporters, although you see here on this pocket notebook for journalists, radio, TV reporters, and law enforcement officers, that hints at other uses and other industries, organizations, groups that use Portage products. They do have a line of incident report notebooks for law enforcement, for first responders of other stripes, EMTs, medics, and the like. But their bread and butter seems to be reporters' notebooks. And they do have a notebook that is labeled as a reporter notebook, which is very similar to this pocket notebook, spiral bound at the top. And it's a tiny bit wider, but mostly a few inches longer. It's designed to be held in the hand while you're interviewing at the scene of whatever it is you are reporting on. And you flip up and take your notes. They brag of a very stout and sturdy cardboard backing that makes it easier for you to take notes while standing at the scene. That's part of their claim to fame. They do have other notebooks other than reporter style and police and medic style. They have a line of what you would now call, I suppose, field notes style notebooks. And they come in a variety of colors. These three, the black, green, kind of a minty green, and white, but also I think a brown, kind of the craft paper look that's common among the field notes style notebooks. And it comes in dot grid, and you can order it in whatever configuration you like at a pretty reasonable cost, cheaper than you would see in field notes. Also available as a graph or blank or traditional lined notebook. I don't have any of those handy here because I didn't happen to order any. I prefer the dot grid myself. The blank would make a nice little sketchbook for graphite, I suppose. Also this, I think they call it like a tactical, which strikes me as funny. Tactical, I think of, you're going to use it as a weapon as needed, but flip top, just stapled together in the craft paper cover line. That's kind of a handy little notebook to stick in the front pocket of your shirt with your pens and whatnot. But let's just check this out. I've been using this notebook to try out pencils for videos. See, the last video I made using this notebook was for the Pentel Excalibur mechanical pencil, but today we're going to go with the Musgrave News, sticking with the newspaper theme. A wonderfully dark graphite in an American-made pencil. We also have, there's a whole line of pencils from various manufacturers that are designed to be used in the newspaper production business. This one called the Press from Richard Best Company, which sort of later became Moon Products, sort of acquired by, I suppose. Even darker and softer than the News 600. And there's a mysterious, I forget who made this one. I'll have to look it up again. I only have one example of this. This one also called the Press. Stop the presses. Have to find a longer example of that. So the whole newspaper mystique is something that still appeals to me. If it appeals to you, maybe you should check out Portage, formerly Portage Newspaper Supply, now Portage Notebooks. I'll put a link in the description. For For those of you who are curious about the suitability for fountain pens of this paper, I don't know why a gritty, plucky reporter in the field would pull out a fountain pen to take notes. It seems like a retractable ballpoint would be the normal way to go, or a pencil that says press right on it. But my lovely daughter, who is the resident fountain pen and ink expert in our household, kindly tried out some fountain pen ink on this paper, and using language that must mean something to fountain pen people. This is a TWSBI Eco Cerulean Blue, inked with Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki, no idea, medium nib. And here she tried it with a Kaweco Sport, medium nib, black inked with Kaweco Royal Blue cartridge. Little Bob Dylan reference there. You can see a little bit of show through on the back of that page, but no bleeding into the next page. So you can judge from that how that would work with your fountain pen if you're the sort to use a fountain pen. For a notebook like this, grab your ballpoint. That seems to be a more appropriate choice, or your graphite pencil with the news right on it. Pocket notebook from Portage, other pocket notebooks from Portage, and tactical notebooks from Portage. They have other products. Check them out. I give them a thumbs up. American company. Sadly, the paper no longer coming from America from what I can tell, but still worth checking out for your paper needs. So if you are a person like me who grew up watching the newsroom comedies and dramas in the 70s and 80s, and envision yourself being a plucky reporter in the field, maybe check out Portage out of Ohio. Thanks for watching this paper episode of Moving About and Manipulating Objects, and I hope to see you here again next time.